Welcome to the In Good Company podcast. This is a space for real conversations about leadership, business, and the moments that shape us along the way. I'm your host, Ginger Jones, and through my work, I've had the privilege of sitting in rooms with thoughtful leaders, founders, and executives who care deeply about how they grow, how they lead, and how they show up. This podcast is an extension of those rooms. We'll share honest stories, meaningful insights, and conversations that will help you think a little differently about the mile you're in and the one that's ahead. Thanks so much for being here. Let's get started. Okay, so Savannah, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
I'm really excited to talk to you because I feel like I've gotten to know you a little bit through Next Mile and events, but haven't dove deep into your story, so I really want to hear more. So will you tell everybody a little bit about your background and what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So my name is Savannah Reynolds. I am a CPA, have been for 12 years now, which is hard to believe. It flies. And back in May of last year, I launched Branch and Vine Accounting following the birth of my third, a baby girl, and a maternity leave. Officially made that transition from corporate America to small firm ownership. Have a very traditional background in the sense that I started off in audit at PricewaterhouseCoopers, doing client services, and then have spent really the past decade in a variety of different corporate accounting, kind of corporate controller roles across a few different industries. Okay. And that's all kind of culminated into what is now my firm.
Yeah. So what made you decide to take that leap and solopreneurship?
Yes, it is definitely something that had been on my heart and mind for several years. Mm-hmm. And as a very risk-averse traditional accountant, I really should have probably pulled that plug a couple of years sooner. A huge part of it for me was needing more time and flexibility in my personal life, wanting more time with my babies. Mm-hmm. But then also, I think there really is a transition kind of in the industry as a whole right now with kind of solo service providers and kind of leaving, the large or mid-tiered firms and kind of starting your own thing. And so, it was kind of a culmination of feeling like it was a calling and I wanted to serve certain small business owners with kind of my professional background, and then also wanting to be able to call the shots a little bit more in my personal life and have more time with my family. Yeah.
Is there anything you miss about corporate? I know you're kind of new to being on your own, but
yes. I mean, obviously the steady W-2 is like
right. Yeah, there's that.
There's that aspect, but at the same time, I think that kind of is like a two-sided coin. A lot of people feel a lot of assurance in corporate America, and sometimes it's honestly a false sense of security. Right. We all know that there can be leadership changes and companies decide to take different directions, and you can give kind of your heart and soul to an organization, and that can end, unfortunately, in a 15-minute HR call. So, there is an aspect of like the steadiness that I'm still adjusting to, but overall, I think it's really been a positive transition, specifically personally. I mean, I can't imagine at this point.
Go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yes, exactly.
I talked to somebody last week who is really looking to go out on her own, and I just been in a corporate world, like started in banking, but she said, like, her and her husband, now she goes, we're both kind of slaves to corporate America. And I was like, oh, isn't that funny? Because it's almost like the grass is greener kind of thing, right? Where, even I've had days where I'm like, wow, it'd be really nice. I think back to like just kind of knowing what was going to happen at 8 o'clock and what was going to happen at 5 o'clock, and like haven't lived that life. And so, it is one of those things that I think there's pros and cons to.
There really is. Yeah. I mean, corporate world, like you're saying, like there is a certain amount of boundaries or structures that are kind of drawn for you. Not that I was not always kind of the type to respond to an email at night or over the weekend. Right. Like there were certainly gray areas, but you have your more traditional like work week or, business hours. And obviously with entrepreneurship, like that all kind of goes out the window. So that's honestly what I feel like I've been learning since May is
Right.
what does that look like? Because it's a give and a take,
Yeah.
the ever elusive work-life balance. And going out on your own, solopreneurship or small firm ownership definitely doesn't automatically mean this like insane level of flexibility and freedom,
Right.
And at times it's even harder to draw those boundaries.
Yeah. Okay, remind me how old your kids are again.
So I have 3. I have 5 and 4-year-old boys, very close, 17 and a half months apart. And then I have a baby girl who just turned 1 in January.
That's awesome. So, that's so good. I think
it's wild.
Yeah, it is totally wild. But also, I look back on those. I don't have 3, but I look back on those times and think like, you kind of don't have a choice but to just figure it out.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
They need you so much in every aspect of the word. There. Yeah. So how has that part been about like, because to your point, I think that's what I think sometimes like entrepreneurship is like glamorized. It's like you have so much flexibility, and it's like true, you do kind of call the shots, but you also are, and sometimes a slave to the thing you created. So how, like, what are some real tactical ways that you've kind of found to balance small children, business ownership?
Yeah. To your point, I mean, especially in client services, like you are meeting the needs of your clients. And so there has to be a level of responsiveness there when it comes to what your clients need from you. This is so much easier said than done. And it's something I'm continually trying to implement, but I am trying very hard to be where I am. And so that means, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, when I have some more help and some more childcare, to really try to be intentional about, the work hours and to, not be scrolling my phone or not be doing like more personal type things. And then, in the evenings and weekends or, the times when I don't have as much help on the childcare front, to be intentional when I'm at the school parties and things like that, and to not be, on my phone on client emails. And again, such a learning lesson and always easier said than done, but trying to honestly bring a lot more intentionality to, what I'm doing at different parts of my days and weeks. And I think a huge learning thing for me, when you have spent over a decade in corporate America, is letting go of the business hours and work hours, because it's honestly so easy to sit down at your desk or in your office and fill the time.
Right.
And I've also had to challenge myself in that regard of, yes, I could sit here and work all day, but like, does this need to be a priority right now? Like, could this also be done in 2 weeks from now? And it honestly wouldn't make a difference to my client either way. And so habits to break for sure.
Yeah. Especially as somebody, I'm assuming, that's more like regimented.
Yes.
Than I don't necessarily share all those things. I loved when you're like, you could send me that question beforehand. I'm like, what a CPA thing to say.
Really not a fan of surprises.
It's like, that's not the point, Savannah. I love it. No, but that's all. I think that's all really easier said than done. But also, you just have to have in your mind that like that's kind of where I'm trying to operate.
Yeah.
And then figure it out as you go, and things are gonna pop up. I mean, I think that's just what I've had to learn.
Things always pop up. Yes.
And can I just steady myself and calm myself or whatever that may be? But yours also are a lot younger than mine too, so that's a different kind of being available. That like physically having to be available. When the older they get, I've kind of found you can, work later because they're doing homework or sports practice or whatever. But when they're little, that's a really challenging.
Yeah. And like I said before, I mean, I kind of reject the idea that there is this perfect answer to work-life balance. Every day looks different, again, depending on sick little ones or what you have going on. And so at times that might look like logging back on after bedtime. And, I try to use that for like more focused, like I really need to do this one specific thing. But it is a give and take. And so maybe that looks like post bedtime or prior to them waking up so that you can be more present during the day. And again, like you don't necessarily have the like full business hour work days anymore. And so being more intentional with those like nooks and crannies and pockets of time.
Yeah. Do you feel, because I did, and I guess I still do every once in a while, pressure to like always be with your kids when you're not
Yes.
working. Yeah. I think that's a very interesting time we're living in.
Yeah.
Because I'll be 47 this year. None of my friends were raised that way. I mean, even when my mom didn't work, but she wasn't around me all the time, and she certainly wasn't entertaining me all the time.
Right.
So I think that's a really interesting like kind of phenomenon that working moms have to deal with now is like every time you get on Instagram, it's telling you you're going to miss this. And so then you feel like you can't miss anything.
Those videos are terrible.
I know.
18 years.
I know.
Or the ones
all
that
the
are
summers, they count the summers.
Yeah, the summers. And some of them are even like, you only get 4 or 5 summers before your kid's in school and it's over, Yeah, just way too much pressure.
I think that's a really wild thing. It's like, again, and maybe like the pendulum.
Yeah.
Is sweet. Maybe parents and my parents' generation didn't spend enough time with us. I don't know. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. I just was wondering if you felt that pressure because you're younger than me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a very real thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's all too like so based on your own personal experience of how you grew up. So my mom was very present. I mean, I was raised by a single mother, but had a lot of support from my grandparents. And so my mom honestly was always an entrepreneur, but she was around like a lot. And when she was not around, I was being cared for by a grandparent, an aunt, that sort of thing. So there was like, I will say, a lot of mind games that went into like the more traditional daycare setting, like when that came time for my kids. And we've kind of done it all at this point. Like, they've been at a traditional daycare where it's, full day care while my husband and I were still in full-time roles. And then, now that I've transitioned out of corporate, we've done like the smaller Mother's Day out type situations. Now we kind of have a mix of both where my older 2 are in preschool more traditionally and then have some help at home in the form of kind of like a mother's helper, which has been, I think that's like the best option if you can do that.
People would always be like, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, I don't do it all.
Yes.
Like for anybody to think that, that people do would be misleading people and setting really too high expectations on other moms. So yeah, those are
100%.
Those are a gift.
Yes.
So you can really, I always felt like, I don't know if you feel the same way. It's like, so that I can do what I do best. Like I know I'm good at running my company and I want to be a good mom. And there's a lot of things that
100%
fall in there that I don't need to be doing every day.
Yeah. And the grass is always greener sometimes. Like I remember when I was in my full-time corporate role, like, seeing people out with their kids on a random work day and, kind of feeling that like guilt or pang or whatever, like you were saying. And so initially when I made the shift, we completely pulled out of full-time childcare and it was last summer. And so we were kind of hodgepodging together the summer camps that last for like 3 hours. And you're like, do I even drive home? Do I sit in the parking lot? I don't even, what do I do with this time? And while that was beautiful and wonderful, and like the summers are always a bit crazy and transitional for families, at the same time, like very quickly learned that I do still need to have that like professional side of my life where I'm having adult conversations or I'm serving clients like with my gifts. That is still very important to me, and I think it's important to your kids as well, to watch you do the thing that you love. And how you serve others. And so yeah, I want the best of both worlds.
I do too. I get it. Yeah, and I think, and that's what's really cool is I think we can kind of have that. And I agree with you too. It's like that. I think if you feel like God put something on your heart, there are some people like I've got friends that like they want to be a mom. That's all they've ever wanted to do, and so that's what God put on their heart. But for me, it was both, and so it's I think I wouldn't be as good a mom. Truly, I mean, I know a lot of people say this, but I don't think I would be as good a mom as I am if I wasn't able to do what I feel like as
100%.
my work purpose. So
100%. It's a completely different like area of your brain and completely different challenge when it's like full-time motherhood. And I totally agree that what I do professionally makes me a better mother.
Yeah. Awesome. So speaking of success, like when, I'm sure success meant kind of one thing to you in the corporate world and now it may mean something different. So how has that changed for you?
Yeah. I mean, children do change everything. Like you're saying, growing up, it was, wearing the Christian Louboutins and driving a Range Rover. Like it was all like success to me was all like monetarily. And honestly, for the first decade of my career, a lot of my career moves were just that. Like, the higher level position, the more money, that sort of thing. And kids definitely change that. They make you rethink everything. And so, also a huge part of it for me is that I see a lot of what I do as a ministry and wanting to serve others, to truly be able to come alongside small business owners and partner with them in their stewardship of their business and what God is calling them to do. I definitely believe that we're all given, gifts and callings and desires. And it's really my goal to be able to come alongside people and partner with them in that. And so, yeah, definitely been a shift over time where now it really is, my version of success is being able to steward my business and my calling and serve my clients well, and also be able to go to the Valentine's parties that we will have on Friday at school, that we'll have in a couple different classes. So I'll be there for hours. So it definitely has changed over time for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I think I would say like it shifted to what felt like the more that was on my terms, that felt like success, where it used to. And I think probably a lot of people go through that when they're younger. It's like a worldly, if I've got this title, making this amount of money. And yeah. And I think there's also things when we talk about like Instagram, hustle culture things maybe that still make people believe that success is a dollar amount or something. But for me, and I think kids did this for me, it's like kids for me meant like to be able to call the shots on my time.
Yes.
Whether it's because they were sick or there was a Valentine's party or whatever, like that there's not, it's like you couldn't pay me enough money really to like not be able to just have the freedom over that. So
100%.
Okay, so let's talk about boundaries, because I feel like every working mom was gonna like have non-negotiables and boundaries and things like that. And you obviously to have survived the first 2 years of business ownership, you probably made some missteps with boundaries. And let's talk about like what are some of your boundaries? What are your non-negotiables? Like, have you gotten some things wrong over the last couple of years?
Oh, 100%. I think the biggest thing right now in the phase that I'm in is really all about intentionality. And honestly, intentionality around how my service offering and how it is that I serve clients well. A lot of times, we maybe could do a lot of things for small businesses, but is that our best yes? Is that where we really shine and thrive? And so for me, it's boundaries around the kind of clients that I take on and the kind of services that I offer them. I specifically like to serve service-based businesses. And so, I don't necessarily deal with traditional businesses selling like a tangible good or a product. And that's, honestly, just personally because of, what I enjoy or what kind of businesses I like supporting. And so sometimes it is difficult to have a boundary around.
Sure, yeah.
And I did this honestly even today. A couple clients where I had walked through kind of the discovery process and the proposal process even, and then, took a step back and thought about it. And while I could serve those clients and I could do the things that they need done, which looks different for every business, it's really not aligned with what it is that I can truly offer well and kind of my ideal client. And so having to have those difficult conversations of maybe recanting so that they can find the best service provider that they need. And so honestly, that's really hard to do too when you're starting a new business. And it's like, you need revenue, and so a lot of times like there is this pressure to just kind of accept what's out there and, oh, you need me to do this for you. Yes, I technically can do that. Right. Maybe it's not what I enjoy doing or ideally would like to offer. But so I feel like I came out of the gate kind of being like, this is my service offering and this is my ideal client. And then, you certainly take on the things that maybe you shouldn't, friends and family and all of that sort of thing. And then, so now we're kind of at that refining and like pruning back a little bit, I will say.
That's really good. I mean, I think I would say it takes a lot of other businesses a much longer time to get there because it is so. I mean, when you got to pay the bills, you're like, I'll just do whatever I can. So
yeah, for sure, and definitely not perfect in that regard at all. Still, I am still a little bit in the corporate world in the sense that I'm still supporting fractionally in a contract role the employer even that I stepped away from. And so that's been nice in the sense that it's been this kind of like consistency that has allowed me to build my business outside of that a little bit more intentionally, to not have as much
stress.
pressure as I maybe would have.
Yeah, I think that's something people don't talk about a lot too, is that like how it could be your side hustle for a bit, or it could be the thing that you just do a little bit here and there, and that there's no shame in that.
There's no shame in that.
Because the pressure to, just jump off the cliff and then have the rent due or the whatever it is, and then just have that little bit of cushion and then grow it. I don't know. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Unless you just had a ton of reserves.
Exactly. Yeah. It definitely, I feel like, eases the pressure. And to your point, social media or whatever kind of glamorizes like the entrepreneurial life without necessarily showing like the stress and the pressure that it can be, like from a financial side of things. And so,
especially when you're growing a family too.
Yes. Yeah. And so that has been really nice for me and a really good cushion or buffer. But similarly, was talking to someone else who also does financial services, who kind of partnered with someone else, another agency. And again, I don't think there's any harm in that necessarily. Right. Yeah. If anything, you're learning your skills, learning how maybe other small businesses or agencies work. And so I think it's okay to either kind of have like one foot in, one foot out, or, support someone else's vision for a little bit. If needed, as kind of a stepping stone.
Learning. Yeah. I before I quit my job, I was like sacking money away, and I wasn't doing like anything. It was like a side hustle because I would have been like out of non-compete, but
right.
But to me, that just having that runway of like, oh, I've got this much money that if it just all goes south, I think that's smart. But it's also like people don't like showcase it because it doesn't sound as sexy, I guess.
Yes.
So tell me about like boundaries with motherhood and things like with the kids or your time. Like what are some things that you've put in place?
Yeah. So for me, I've really tried to hone in on, okay, like what are my working hours? What is my work time? And then what is life outside of that? And so I try to really prioritize Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday right now. Middle of the week, your clients are probably, operating in that time frame as well. And then have a little bit more flexibility on the Monday, Friday for the things like the school parties or just the life stuff that you need to do, personally. Again, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to take a client call on a Monday or Friday if that needs to happen, but have, tried to be intentional with that. And then kind of like we said before, if things come up in, what I'm saying or is my true kind of like business week, sick kiddo or doctor's appointment or whatever, then, maybe that does look like logging back on for a couple nights or for a couple hours after bedtime sort of thing. But again, I have found that while it's surprising because I am a more like routine, regimented kind of person, it honestly, boundaries for me have kind of become more of a mindset versus like this very rigid, like,
that's good.
This is my working hours, and I've honestly just been forced into that.
Yeah.
To have that flexibility.
Yeah.
That goes both ways.
Yeah.
There are times that I'm giving my business more than my kids and vice versa, and it's again kind of rejecting that idea that there is this like perfect idea of that work-life balance.
And I think there's seasons too that we just have to be aware of and that we have to allow. And one of my boundaries was always, well, I didn't say always, definitely in the last like 10 years, I feel like was no more than like one nighttime event. Because, I'm sure you're like, you can get invited to a million like networking things or business dinners or whatever. But I'm in a season where I can't really even hold myself to that. Like Next Mile is growing. And so it's like, oh, we're happy hour here, happy hour there. And so I think that's another thing too that we have to do is just kind of go, like in theory, this is a good boundary for me because I really don't want to be gone from my kids that much. But also they're going to be okay, if I'm not home 2 nights this week. And then I've always just tried to like, okay, how can I get back on that schedule? So there's just going to be times when life's crazier, but can just shift and shimmy back to where I want to be after there's been some crazy.
Yeah, you definitely raise a good point. I mean, when it comes to launching a small business, the networking and that side of it honestly can be a full-time job in and of itself. And so partially because I have had to, I haven't necessarily gone out and joined every group that's out there. I've kind of visited and seen maybe what was being offered, but have been pretty specific in what I have joined. And then in making that commitment, really tried to commit and dive in to that. So, for example, Next Mile, I've obviously joined and loved. And for me, it was about authenticity in the room. And, you know, it didn't feel overly stuffy or corporate or professional in that people were showing up and kind of presenting this resume, you know, or more transactional, I should say. It really felt authentic and genuine, you know, other entrepreneurs and business owners, you know, really wanting to make valuable connections, and nobody wants to waste anyone's time, to your point. And so it's really been an invaluable group for me, for sure, and something that I always enjoy showing up to, whether that's, you know, the happy hours or the kind of daytime learning events. So,
well, you're very intentional. I mean, that comes through in like everything you're saying and just all of my interactions with you. And I think so you're like the perfect person. Like when I created it, you're like the person I had in mind. But no, I'm glad to hear that. And also like, just glad. I think that's the thing is like, you can, it's almost like you just got to have more bang for your buck when you're a working mom, right? So it's like, I could go, but it's like, if I'm going to be out at night or even at this point, like taking a lunch, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just got to really fill my bucket
Sure.
because there's so many things vying for my attention and my time. So I feel the same.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, probably personally as well, like I would rather, you know, go deeper with one group and have, you know, better relationships with the other members in that group versus kind of being a casual guest at a million little things. And, you know, there's always a certain level of like breaking the ice and meeting people brand new for the first time. And there's probably not a lot of like value there initially. And so rather than spend my time at a million different breakfasts, coffees, lunches, happy hours, just kind of making that an initial introduction with people. I really like the fact that in your group, there always is new people, but there's also, you're building deeper relationships.
Especially with what you do too, because I think anytime you're dealing with somebody's finances, like man, the trust factor is huge. So it's so important. There's, you know, a lot of people, I would say, in Next Mile, relationships are important in all aspects of business, but I think especially when you're dealing with people's money, that it's a smart move for you to put yourself in places where people can get to know your heart and get to know your core values, and that it's going to make it an easier referral.
Yeah.
For you.
And to your point, I mean, 95% of my business has been referrals at this point. And I honestly don't really expect that to change, just given the nature of the work. Like you said, I feel like finance is legal, that sort of things. Those industries kind of lend themselves to word of mouth kind of being the best.
I tell my wealth advisor, I'm like, it's not like I'm dropping off my dry cleaning with you, you know?
Exactly.
Like this is a big deal, you know? So you have to have those good relationships. So
yeah. And I mean, more to that, I think that's like, that was a huge part of why I wanted to start my business. I have worked at larger professional service organizations and, you know, have been in corporate roles where we utilized firms for, you know, fractional staffing and that sort of thing. And there was just often a really missing component of customer service.
Right.
For me, that's kind of my why, honestly, to truly be a financial partner to small business owners and for them to know that they're going to get a response to an email or a call, not instantaneously, but like within a reasonable amount of time. And so often I feel like small business owners, you know, they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders and have a million decisions to make and often don't necessarily have the support that they need from their service providers. Or a lot of times it's really augmented into, you know, this person does this and this person does this and those people never talk. And so for me, I've tried to be really intentional in, I would much rather keep the client list much smaller, but provide a more holistic level of service to my client versus having the 50 smaller clients that I only maybe do one kind of project type thing for.
No, I love that. Because you're really saving, I mean, just from experience of somebody like me, like your gifts are not my gifts, you know? And so to, again, back to the trust, you know, to be able to have somebody that it's like, cause you know, the weight of the world is on you, and to just kind of have somebody like you in your corner that's like, I know I can trust that that's being handled. I say this a lot around Next Mile too. It's even also my trust in people is also, are you going to tell me when you can't do it? And when you don't know, like that's such a big deal too. So like, you really are taking something that stresses a lot of small business owners out. And I love that you're focused on small business owners, because I do feel like I think you and I have talked about this, but we're in a lot of roll ups, right? Of like felt like it was healthcare for a while, and now it's a lot of accounting, and I, not that there's anything wrong. I mean, we all want to go after the big clients, but I do think small business owners get left sometimes because it's not
100%.
The $30 million revenue client. And so I'm really glad that there's people like you helping small businesses out.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, it's been so interesting to watch that kind of roll up of professional services and PE involvement where, traditionally it hasn't been before. And we'll see how that shakes out and what that ends up looking like. Again, I think it's highly possible that the client's service aspect, that the client kind of gets the short end of that stick, I will say. But, there is this pressure, even you read the business books that are out there to, even if you're doing professional services, to commoditize, like, and that's such a give and take. I do believe that you need to really define what your ideal offering is and, what you do well and how you can serve people. But at the end of the day, every small business is different. And again, going back to that true partnership, like, yes, I might have my systems and tools and, what my processes look like or what my standard reporting looks like, but there's got to be a level of flexibility there to like, how is this different for this specific business in the season that they're in, Right. And so I feel like I'm like weighing back and forth this, like the pressure to, commoditize professional services, build to sell, like all of that sort of thing versus the, what is the book that I'm blanking on right now, but that speaks about hospitality.
Oh, I'm seeing the guy on
Yes.
Wednesday. Unreasonable Hospitality.
Unreasonable Hospitality. Yeah, read that recently and just absolutely loved it. And so that's kind of like
I feel like
where I'm at.
Right. I get that because I felt like that too in my old business. I feel like that was a coffee shop with Next Mile. I mean, it's like, how do you, you don't want everything to be brand new and everything be something that you have to effort over, right? Like there needs to be some processes and things, but then it is so special when when you're on the receiving end of that. So I'm with you. It's constantly thinking through how do you stand out in that way and how do you offer something that's really meaningful.
And as a solo firm owner, obviously don't necessarily have the team right now where a lot of that comes into play, but I think it is important to think through what is my blueprint, what are my processes, what are my offerings, so that eventually as that grows, you don't necessarily want to lead from a place of confusion or we'll figure it out. And there is that you also don't want to become necessarily a bottleneck in your business and you be the one source of the information or the person to do the things. And I mean, honestly, that's both in your business and your personal life, more to like making my kids help clean up the table and like stuff like that. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And there's even honestly a biblical part of this in Exodus when Moses had led the children of God out of Egypt. And then they, were wandering around the wilderness and they honestly, things got tough and they wanted to even go back to Egypt. And I think about that. For me, that's like, go back to corporate. Sometimes you're like, oh, this is really tough and doesn't feel that great right now. And isn't going the way I wanted, that sort of thing. And then later in Exodus, there's a part where Moses, every day, everyone would kind of just stand around him and, he was the one to speak to God and to settle disputes among the people and that sort of thing. And his father-in-law came to visit and kind of oversaw this for a day and was like, why are you the one doing everything? And I think that honestly, like, is so like transcends to business as well, back to your people and your blueprint and your systems. And so kind of instructed him like, you should establish chiefs to like handle these minor disputes among people and they should only really come to you with the important things. And it's like, there it was in like the second book of the Bible, like, this instruction for, entrepreneurship and delegating and, like systems and processes. And so that's where I'm at right now for sure of like still building that blueprint and those processes for kind of how I want to grow my business.
Yeah. But the cool thing is none of that needs to be figured out. I think we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have it all figured out. So me now, because it's kind of like my second time around, I feel like I duct taped a lot of things together my first time. But I also think like who I became, kind of figuring it out, doing it the wrong way sometimes too, was really valuable as well. So
for sure, you learn more. I feel like a lot of times with the
mess up.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And I think the other thing it's like a gift you can give yourself when you're starting out is that like, the stakes aren't as high, you know. It feels like and maybe they really never are. I mean, we're not doing brain surgery here,
right?
But it's just a gift of like, no, it's okay for me to figure this out, and it's okay for me to get it wrong. I probably didn't do that enough, and it felt like failure didn't feel like an option. And in some way, you can like, that's admirable, because I think if you have that, like, I can't fail.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it's like, man, I probably lost a lot of sleep over stuff that I didn't need to, you know.
Yeah, that's what I would go back and tell like 21-year-old Savannah when she was like first striking out in the corporate world, like the things that I took far too seriously and like stressed over. And it was like, you were the, smallest person on the totem pole at your public accounting firm. Like nothing was resting on your shoulders, you know?
I had those same moments. I can remember like crying in the bathtub over a patient of mine.
Yeah.
But also kind of having this, I was probably like 26 or something, and having the self-awareness that like I'm not going to be able to help a lot of kids if like one thing bothers me this much. And so thankfully, I think that is one thing that maybe sometimes we forget about the corporate world too. I was just talking to a guy on a call before I came here about you have mentors, so and sometimes leadership isn't great in the corporate world, but my time before I started my own business there were some people that were about 10 or 15 years ahead of me that really could help me see you don't have to stress out like you're going to get burnt out, like those kind of things. So
yeah, to your point, and that exactly goes back to like the structure and boundaries that sometimes corporate just has built in that you then have to figure out when you're an entrepreneur, is kind of that self-assessment and that feedback loop. Right. And to your point, like having the kind of built-in structured mentors, which, not to sound like I'm on a loop, but again, like that goes back to your group and why I think that it's so important to surround yourself with like-minded people, and so that you can, bounce ideas off other entrepreneurs who, maybe have, to your point, like they're 5 to 10 years ahead of you, and have kind of
stuff out.
That experience. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about your, like, I guess, leadership style and leadership, because it sounds like obviously team of one right now, but you're growing your team. But there's other places where you lead. Like, do you feel like that has changed since running your own show?
Yeah, for sure. And again, motherhood completely changes that. So I think the largest team that I probably led, thinking back to my corporate experience, was probably around a team of like 6 or so, whether directly or indirectly kind of underneath me. And most of that was like prior to kids and still very much like grinding it out. And so I probably would have led a lot differently if I was doing that,
with totally
with this level, of
I know the expectations you
yes.
have on other people before you have kids. Yeah, no,
and I think back to that's like pre-COVID, and when we were in the office, 100% of the time, and all of that, and I think about like the working moms that kind of came before me and the managers that I had who were balancing like full-time in office, childcare, 6 little ones, like the commute home, and then cooking from home. And like, I'm like, while COVID was wild, like very thankful for kind of that disruption and that normalization a little bit of remote work. I know you've seen a lot of people kind of do a return to work. For me, honestly, like a hybrid environment probably does make the most sense in that, like,
I think there's flexibility.
Yeah, there is a level of like isolation when you're at home 100% of the time, and that need for engagement. But some of the aspects I feel like have been really positive when it comes to motherhood and like allowing for a little bit more balance when you need to start dinner or turn on a crock pot or start a little laundry,
It's so funny you say that, because I was thinking this morning about my time at Vanderbilt, and I didn't have kids when I had my first child after I left, but I remember this other speech pathologist who was a mom saying, like, I already did 2 loads of laundry before I got here this morning. I was like, oh my God, like you don't have to wake up and do laundry in the morning when you don't have kids. Like you probably have some other time to do it. If it's just like you or you and your spouse. And so I can remember being like, she's a badass.
Yes.
she's doing laundry at 6 a.m., and it's like now just to think that's like a normal day for me. And I used to think that was like a superpower. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've lived an entire life before, like
I
most
know,
people
before 6 a.m.
open their
Yeah.
eyes. Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
That's so funny. But again, I think it's all sounds like it made you better. I feel the same way too. What's some advice you would give somebody that was kind of in the corporate world, kind of thinking like, might want to do this, might want to take the leap? What's your advice?
I think to really give that some thought and kind of fully flesh that out sooner. I wish if I could go back to 25, 26-year-old me, I didn't even really know people were out there running solo firms and kind of like charting their own path, And so part of it, again, like social media, I feel like is just awareness and just being able, like challenging the status quo of, I feel like, where I went to grad school was very much a, success looks like this. Like you go to one of the giant big four firms and you stay for X amount of time and then you leave and you get a corporate controller or CFO role. And it was very much this like, this is the path, like this is the linear, these are the stair steps. And yeah, I would just say being okay to challenge that, I think is huge, because I do think the industry is changing a lot, like for accounting specifically, but I think it's so applicable to so many things. For instance, you from a healthcare background, like how many people are out there now on Instagram making like parental aids and like teaching us guides and all of these things where it's like entirely different kind of like side streams and businesses that might be a little bit out of like the traditional norm that you would think.
It doesn't have to look the way we were taught. Yeah,
exactly.
That's really good. I like that. Okay, so your question from Eric Jackson.
Oh goodness.
Was I don't think I have it. Do you remember? Okay, then I'm like, this is so good for you. What's something you're good at, and how'd you figure out you were good at it?
Yeah, so I think I have a answer to this one. I generally think that I am good kind of distilling like highly technical accounting and finance terminology into like, or communicating that to non-careered accountants. And I really love serving like more creative entrepreneurs or a lot of my practice, funny enough, probably because my husband is in healthcare, has kind of ended up healthcare adjacent in that I have a mental health like therapy practice and BCBAs that are clients or play therapists and that sort of thing. And because I'm married to my husband who's in healthcare, I know that his brain just works a completely different way. And so I think being able to communicate, more technical financy terms and acronyms and that sort of thing, and being able to like truly distill that down and to explain what that means versus just the like, well, this is the way that it is, I think is a gift that was probably developed through just honestly collaborations, even during corporate, like with other teams outside of accounting and finance. I've always been a pretty relational person, which is a bit odd for like a traditional CPA background. And so, yeah, I would say that's probably a strength that's kind of grown over time.
That's an awesome gift too.
Yeah.
And it's also your self-awareness that person needs that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a huge,
yes.
Because some people you probably can speak to, like they're an accountant, but also like,
exactly.
how do I make this where it's not burdensome for this founder or this owner? Yeah.
And like recognizing like when someone's eyes start to glaze over and they're not understanding you, because I feel like oftentimes people feel a lot of shame or embarrassment around like the more
Not
technical, financy side of their business. And there is none of that here. Oftentimes I feel like a lot of people even feel the need to like tidy up before they have an initial discovery call with me. And it's like, there is no prep work that needs to be done.
Messy,
Like, don't spend the time trying to clean up whatever your books look like or whatever you think, because ultimately I will probably still have changes. Yeah, really just trying to peel back the layers of like shame and guilt that I feel like some small business owners.
I'm so glad you said that, because it's true. And I mean, and again, for you to be aware of that just means you're going to meet people so much closer to where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was that person, so I can tell you. I mean, like even my CFO would just have like 40 pages of stuff. And I was like, I feel like I need to know 5 of these. And, my eyes would. I mean, it's like, I'm good for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then really, I'm not paying any attention.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And I love too. It's like, don't even clean up what you're sending me. Cause it's, I'm in my consulting too. I can see that, and I won't touch their finances. I'll be like, send it to me and let me look at it, and then but I'll pass it off to somebody like you. But I see the same thing. And again, it's a lot of service-based businesses where it's like, that's not your gift, you know, like you're supposed to be helping the kids or you know, doing whatever. And so I love that you're just like calling that out, and we're just saying that so that people know, like, you can't be all the things in your business. And
no, you cannot. I mean, for me, you know, I'm the very like analytical side of my brain. And so in starting my business, it was like, oh, I'm going to need to hire a branding photographer. I'm going to need to hire a web developer, a social media person, because those are not my gifts. And I will stress and overthink about this Instagram post for 10 hours. And like, I could have been doing more meaningful revenue generating things, you know? Yeah. And so again, I think that, really playing into your calling and gifting. And that doesn't mean that you can't grow and learn new skills. Like, I think that it is important to try new things and to, you know, educate yourself. But at the end of the day, I think it's really awesome, all of kind of the fractional offerings that are out there now, in that, you know, you can pretty much find outsourcing or fractional assistance for, you know, a variety of different areas of your business now.
That's so good. I wouldn't think anybody was talking about a long time ago.
Exactly.
Okay, last but not least, because since this is the Next Mile podcast, so do you have like a favorite event or a favorite nugget that you learned, or even just a favorite conversation with somebody that?
Yeah. Well, I love the happy hours because there's obviously a level of, you know, seeing people that you haven't seen since maybe last month and that sort of thing, and always meeting new people. But I think this year specifically, you guys have come out of the gate in 2026, and they have been some of my favorite trainings and lunches. Just like very practical nuggets that you can take away. Eli Perkins was it?
I know, right?
About,
the email. I was like, my life has changed. I don't know if
my life has changed. Exactly. And like,
and it was about email.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah. And just, you know, reminding us of some of the things we already knew, like there's no such thing as multitasking, and it's hard to bounce back and forth, you know, and kind of grouping your task and that sort of thing. But I just feel like, you know, it's great to hear the like self-help and business development that like feels a little bit more like philosophical or whatever. But I think some of the practical things you guys have brought to the table here lately, that like day one you can walk out of there and like implement that.
And the last couple of speakers were like, this isn't anything earth shattering. I mean, what is anymore, right? Like, we can learn anything. So for me, I'm like, it's taking these high achievers like you, these busy people like you, and like bringing them together. And like, if one thing, I mean, to me, I'm like, I even told Eli, because he was like, Ginger, this isn't, I'm not like changing the world here. And I said, but if, to me, these people are doing important things in the world. So if they leave your session and do one thing differently that makes them better, then I'm like, that's a win all the way around. So thanks for saying that. Because I look for the simple but profound, because I think that's what goes over our head. We're so busy. And so I do need somebody to sit me down in a room and teach me how to do my email, because I've just kind of done it wrong for 20 years. So thanks for saying that. But I appreciate that. And of course, you've been like, I think from the first, you came and found me after the first thing you came to, and were like, this room, like, how do you get these people? And I'm like, and I could, so I knew when I met you that you got it, and I was like, so you belong. And so I'm really thankful to, I just have gotten to know you. And, I'm thankful for your contribution. So tell people where, since I know you're on social media, since you have a manager, where can people find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, kind of across all channels at Branch and Vine Accounting. We kind of grabbed the handle everywhere.
Yeah, good.
And then, you know, personally on LinkedIn as well. But yes, can be found across all channels. And thank you so much for your leadership and what you've cultivated. I know I told you when I met you, I remember hearing you speak 4 to 5 years ago, right after your transaction and selling your company. It was at Vaco. It was a women's event.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And my sister, who is an SLP as well, I immediately called and was like, you need to hear this woman's story.
Oh, yeah. That was so, because that was like after my video. Like, that was the first time I ever played that video where I was like crying.
Yeah.
My friend. Yeah, that's right.
And just, you know, felt a connection with you even from that speech. And then, like I said, your, you know, the room that you've created and the network of people that you've created. I just value so much, and I'm so thankful for.
Of course, but I'm like, I keep getting inspired. People like you are like, why Next Mile is like, I'm like, that's what it's there for, is to just like real authentic people that want to get real learning and make real connections. So the feeling's mutual. Thank you.
A little love fest, right?
I know.
For
like,
Valentine's.
Danny, you can edit our love fest.